Have you ever wanted to know a little bit more about how you can build pretty much instantaneous trust with people? Well, watch this video. So today we're going to be talking about really the art and the psychology behind rapport building. So if you like this content, please hit the like button, please hit subscribe below, and let's get to it. All right, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about the art of rapport building and really how it creates instant trust and connection with people and how we're going to want to utilize that in our real estate business. Yes, people do buy homes, people do sell homes, but at the end of the day, our conversations with people and our ability to develop rapport, people are actually going to be buying us and buying our services because of the rapport that we build with them. All right, why does rapport matter? You all know I'm a big fan of scripts, but at the end of the day, you can't out-script somebody, and no matter how great your scripts are, they're really not going to matter if the person on the other side of the table does not feel like they have a connection to you. So clients, they're going to sense whether you're authentic or not. And our kind of craft and skill that we always have to continue to work on is how do we communicate with people? How do we develop that rapport and still be really genuinely authentic to ourselves and who we are? And part of that is going to be, kind of creating that level of confidence in other people that we are going to be the best choice for them in their real estate needs. And trust happens in seconds. And there is a part of your brain, which is kind of developed right here, called the croc brain. It's also where your flight and fight instinct lives. It's really the first part of the developed human brain. And in that part of your brain, when you meet someone new, your brain is automatically looking to figure out who is going to be the dominant person in this relationship and who is going to be more of that subservient, submissive person in that relationship. So it is really critical that we're always aware that at the very beginning of our meeting with people, we're already going to be starting to develop rapport, even subconsciously with people. And the most critical component in rapport building is our ability to transform tension. When rapport is strong, when you have to have those difficult and tough conversations with your clients, that rapport is going to help you be able to move through those conversations easier. And in the last training, we talked a lot about objection handling. And the key component of objection handling is knowing how to kind of maneuver that conversation. You're not going to be able to know how to do that if you don't actually have good rapport with your clients. And now really what's the science and kind of psychology behind it? Rapport isn't fluffy. It might sound fluffy, you might think it's fluffy, but it's actually neurology. When you develop a genuine rapport with someone, you're not just being nice. People see right through that. You're literally changing their brain chemistry. Human connection releases oxytocin, which is called the brain's trust hormone. So we always want to be very cognizant of the fact that the conversations that we're having with people are actually affecting their brain. It's not just their emotions. And mirror neurons are another fascinating piece of this puzzle. And these specialized brain cells cause people to subconsciously copy those they feel that they're aligned with. When someone mirrors your gestures, mirrors your tone, mirrors your expression, it's not manipulation if you use it for the good of the world. It's actually how the natural human neurology actually works. And every client you meet is asking themselves one hidden question: do I feel safe with you? Do I feel like in this really, really stressful time in my life that you're going to really help me solve my problem? And always keep in mind, selling real estate is up there in the top 3 most stressful things in people's lives: death, divorce, and buying and selling a home. So our ability to communicate effectively with people, create rapport, have them really feel safe with us is going to determine whether or not they want to work with us. And our ability to answer questions through our tone, our authenticity, mirror matching, neuro-linguistic programming, communication skills are all going to help that person on the other side of the table feel more confident with us. Now, how does the brain build trust in seconds? It's not built over time. It's built in micro moments of alignment. So your brain is constantly scanning for safety signals and psychological anchors that determine whether someone wants to open up to you or they want to shut down. A really great example of that, if you've ever heard of like a pattern interrupt in NLP, like if you're cold calling, somebody picks up the phone and you dive in of like, oh, I know your home has shown up on the expired list, they're immediately putting that wall up with you. Yet if you start with a different pattern interrupt, that actually starts to bring that sense of needing to hold tight as opposed to being open to you, you're going to realize how different your conversations are going to be with people. Going back to how the human brain builds trust. Familiarity bias, emotional contagion, and the like me effect. So people build trust because they feel like the person on the other side of the table is familiar to them. And that's going to be by matching their tone, matching their posture, pacing your speech. If that resonates with them, it's going to feel familiar. Now, the emotional contagion, if you're calm, you're going to calm them down. If you're excited, you're going to get them a little bit more stressed. So we really want to make sure that we're embodying confidence, ease, safety, so that as we're communicating with people in that super stressful place, we're able to really bring down their stress levels and have them feel safe, aka they trust us. And then there's the like me effect. We instinctively trust people who sound and act like us. And it is absolutely critical that we learn not to communicate in our style, but to communicate in the style in which the other person is going to be most receptive. So there is actually a rapport equation. So rapport equals familiarity, safety, and validation. So here's how it shows up in familiarity. You sound and move like them. Match their tone, match their pace, match their energy levels naturally. As an example, if you're a fast talker like I am, and you're communicating with someone who is pretty much a slow talker, they're not going to absorb anything that I've had to say, because the way that I'm communicating with them is not the way that they're going to receive information. And we have to be very conscious of that. Safety. They don't want to feel any judgment. They actually want to feel like you're going to be able to solve their problems. So we want to validate their feelings before we offer solutions. And then validation. They want to feel seen and want to feel heard. We've all heard in sales, no one wants to be sold to. They really just want to feel like they've been heard and they've understood, and that they're understood. And how do we do that? We repeat key phrases that we show them that we're actually listening to them. So all three elements have to come together in order for you to really have developed trust with someone quickly. If one of them is missing, it's really going to feel off to the person that you're communicating with. 4 levels of rapport. There's physical rapport, there's emotional rapport, mental rapport, and then values rapport. Physical, we need to learn how to mirror and match their behavior. So if they're sitting back in the chair, you want to be sitting back in the chair. If they've got their arms on the table, you need to move subtly to put your arms on the table. And we can't make this feel contrived. It actually has to become something natural that you just develop this skill set in your own world. Emotional rapport. People want to know that their feelings are acknowledged. If somebody's talking about something frustrating, you want to say to them, that sounds frustrating. I'd feel the same way that if I were you in that situation. Once again, that is going to make them be more willing to open up to us versus really closing down on us. Mental, you got to match their communication style. If they're data driven, you've got to bring facts and figures. If they're storytellers, you have to use examples and narratives. And this also kind of drives back to, and go familiarize yourself again with the DISC assessment. Once you understand that, at least that superficial part of different personality types, you're going to have a better understanding of what your mental rapport and communication style might need to be. Value, you need to align with what matters most to them. So as an example, if it sounds like family space is really important to you, let's focus on homes that prioritize that. How do we know value rapport? We've got to ask really great questions. We've got to make sure, like I always say, you've got to go at least 3 questions deep. Because if you just ask that first question, you're just on the surface. You're really not connecting with what that emotional driver is for them. And you may never get down to the fact that that family room and family connection is important to them, because you just haven't dug deep enough into what is that emotional motivating factor for people. Pacing, and I'm getting rid of my watch because it keeps hitting my glass desk. Pacing and leading, one of many different neuro-linguistic concepts. And it's basically meeting them where they are and then gently guiding them forward. And pacing is acknowledging where they are right now. So I totally understand that this feels overwhelming. And then leading them to, once they feel heard, gently guide them to the solution of saying, let's take this step by step so it's easier to navigate. Another one that you all know I absolutely love is the feel, felt, found. When you say, I really do understand how you feel, a lot of my clients have felt exactly the same way. And what we have found is X, Y, and Z. Why don't we spend some time together working through what that might look like for you? And the only way that we're going to influence somebody is basically by building rapport first. And so much of what we need to do, and was absolutely essential, is when we're pacing someone through basically a tough decision or understanding a different perspective, we need to ask the right questions to guide them through self-discovery. Because if we tell them something, they're just going to subconsciously feel like we're talking at them. If we help guide them to the point where they self-discover it for themselves, they're really going to own that decision. Mirror matching. I think everybody pretty much knows that at this particular point, but you've got to mirror energy, you've got to reflect body language, and you really need to match vocabulary. So when you hear key words that they keep saying over and over again, you need to make sure that you're repeating those back to them. And the other thing that we need to look at, which I believe we're talking in this one, values. So what is important to you? This is so critical, because if we don't connect with what the emotional driving factor is for their real estate decision, it's going to be really difficult to keep them on track and to have them make the right decisions as they move forward. And so much of this is continuing to dig deep to finding that emotional connection for why they're moving. What is important to you is a great one. Tell me more about that. I love asking, like when someone makes a statement, once again, we're in those 3-level questions. Talk to them about, well, tell me a little bit more about that. You're pulling more information out of them. Tell me what is important to you about that. When they make that statement, you can also do something about, like, great, if we're able to move forward with this, how would your life change? What would it feel like? What would it look like if we were able to sell this house and get you closer to your grandchildren, before the holidays start? So much of it is asking them those important questions, because it makes it not about a transaction. It actually makes the relationship transformative. Because at the end of the day, a client is going to see right through us if we're just in this for the commission check. If we're truly in this to help them make the best decision, they're going to feel that. That's going to build the rapport that is going to develop an opportunity where they trust you and they're going to feel like they're in alignment with you. Now, this is critical. I keep saying there's critical things, important things. This is pretty much essential in your skill set learning, is language alignment. People perceive and process the world through different sensory channels. When you speak their language, not yours, theirs, that connection happens effortlessly. The three most common are going to be visual learners, auditory, and kinesthetic. It's really important to spend some time learning the cues on this. And by the way, if you're talking all the time and you're not asking questions and soliciting conversations from people, it is impossible to pick up the cues on what their language style is. It just won't work. So visual language cues, if they use things like, I don't see how that's going to work for us, or, I can't really picture myself doing X, Y, and Z, or this appears to be a bad time in the market to put my house, on the market. We need to make sure that we are communicating back to them in a language that's going to be reflective of that. Like I can, validate, I can see why you might feel that way. Let's look at how this might be something that could be a good option for you. Hear, auditory, language, hear, sound, tell, listen, rings true. So if someone's like, that sounds really difficult for me. And then you give your kind of objection handler. As opposed to like doing that small close of saying, does that make sense to you? You might say, does that ring true to you? It might not be natural for me to ever say, does that ring true to you? But it doesn't matter whether it's natural for me. It's going to be natural for the person that I am communicating with that is actually going to resonate with them. And then kinesthetic, it's going to be much more tactile. So how does that feel? Do you need to get a handle on this? Those are going to be some of the examples that you're going to want to kind of add into kind of your vernacular when you're communicating with people. So you might want to say something when you're, kind of do that mini close, does that feel like a good fit for you? Or I can grasp what you need, or I can grasp what your concern is. That is going to help you build that additional communication with people. NLP tools, pacing and leading, sensory language, anchoring. So we really want to make sure, we talked about pacing and leading previously. We've talked about sensory language and anchoring. Anchoring is linking a positive emotion with your presence based on your consistent behavior. So you always want to deliver good news with a smile on your face and an upbeat tone. And then if it's going to be a challenging conversation, you want to make sure you're anchoring it with confidence, anchoring it with that sense of safety for them, that even though this might be a challenge, I'm going to help get you through this. And that kind of leads me into, kind of one tip. When you're sitting down with buyers and you're sitting down with sellers, you're always going to want to say to them at the very beginning of your communication with them, this transaction is going to be a rocky road. This is not going to be stress-free. There's going to be a lot of speed bumps along the way, and I want to earn your trust so that you know that I'm going to get you through each one of those speed bumps and any division that might happen over the course of this transaction. I got you. We're going to be fine. What you're doing there is setting their expectations at the very beginning of the transactions that things are going to go wrong and you are going to help them solve them. So that at the end of the day, if the transaction is completely smooth, you are a superhero and they're going to always want to refer business to you and do additional business with you. If things are difficult, subconsciously, they're going to remember that you said that at the beginning. And so when we're delivering the bad news, coming in with confidence and also doing that gentle reminder, remember that first day we met and I said things are going to be a little rocky. There's going to be some speed bumps. Well, we've just hit our speed bump. Let's sit down and talk about this. Let's go through all of it. And let's look at the different solutions that we could approach for this particular challenge. Common rapport killers. Over talking to prove value. Forcing enthusiasm when they're calm, ignoring tone cues, and confusing friendliness with alignment. Early in my career, I was not necessarily an over talker to prove value, but I was not an active listener. I was actually in my head trying to think about what I'm going to say next to prove my value. And at the end of the day, I was answering questions they weren't even asking because I was not active listening. We don't need to impress people. We need to go in there with the confidence that we are the best solution for them. Sit back, be patient, listen, and respond, basically appropriately. And you can only do that if you're actively listening. And also, give yourself some what I call breather statements. When you're actively listening, your brain's going to need to catch up. You do need to give yourself a little bit of space. So when someone's saying something, you can actually just have some standard statements of I really appreciate your perspective on that. Or, I'm really glad you asked that question. Or the one I always love is, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because, that first statement that they're throwing out there is not necessarily what that emotional driver is. So one, by asking them these follow-up questions, you're giving your brain the chance to catch up, but more importantly, you're truly getting deeper into the discovery process. Don't force enthusiasm when they're calm. If you're rah-rah cheerleader and they're just very low-key, you're going to turn that energy off. They're not going to respond well to you. And this is why matching their temperament is extremely important. And as you get to know them better, more enthusiasm can come out because you now have wow, I need more coffee. You have a legitimate relationship with them. I was going to say genuine, but it just wouldn't come out of my mouth. Tone cues. You're not listening again. Kind of comes to that point. You're not truly listening. And then the client just revealed something really important to you in their tone, and you just missed it. Because tone really tells a lot. And that's why, it's always talked about how written communication, whether it's email, text as an example, we can't necessarily resonate with sarcasm or tone changes because we're reading these words and interpreting them through our lens. We're not actually seeing it through their lens and their particular tone. Friendliness, being friendly and building rapport is strategic, but empathy is actually more important. And you don't want to go out there wanting to be liked. You really want to go out there wanting to be trusted. Real world examples, mirror match their tone, use their phrasing, reflect their emotions, because the result is you're going to see those tones of they relax, their shoulders drop, they're going to warm up to you. They're not going to feel quite so overwhelmed. They're going to actually feel like you're not a stranger with an agenda. You're there to actually be a trusted guide. And another quick side tip, another great way to build trust with people relatively instantly is to do what you say you're going to do. So I don't like to call them presentations, I really want to call them conversations, but if you're doing a buyer conversation or a listing conversation, you want to give your agenda or your talking points to them at the very beginning, because let's use an example of a seller. If you're going to talk to them and you say, hey, I'm just going to, tell you a little bit more about myself. We're going to review any questions that you have about, the marketing and, who I am, just to make you feel comfortable on that. Then we're going to go into market conditions and work together on what we believe is an effective price for your home that's going to cause it to sell. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about what all the next steps are in order for you to make a decision that I'm the right realtor for you. You've set that agenda for them. They're now going to have their shoulders relax because now they have a roadmap for where that conversation is going to go. And when you tick off each one of those boxes of those agenda items, you're subconsciously building trust with people. So make sure you use kind of that trust hack in your conversations with people when you're really talking about important things. 3-minute challenge. Go out there and big step takeaway, this is all about developing really effective communication skills. And these communication skills don't stop when, our real estate workday ends. These are communication skills that we're going to use with everyone for the rest of our life. So my challenge to you is basically to go out there over the next couple of days and have conversations with people especially the people who are most important to you in your life, and try to identify, what is their communication style? Are they auditory? Are they visual? Are they kinesthetic? Start asking 3-level questions. Start to figure out how you mirror and match them when you're having even, the most, I'd say general conversation. And even more importantly, if you're having, really important conversations with people. And always ask the people, tell me what's important to you about that. And for years, my husband's been my guinea pig. And so I would always test him with like 3-level questions, and I would work on this rapport building. And I also would try to figure out how long it's going to take in us communicating with each other that he's going to figure out I'm doing this stuff. He's pretty smart, so it came pretty quickly. But I also do this with groups of friends or strangers that I meet. Your ability to connect with strangers, like whether it's a networking event or you go to a friend's barbecue and you're meeting new people, utilizing all this skill set is going to make those conversations so much easier for you to have. And by the way, people love to talk about themselves. So when we ask the right probing questions, people are going to open up to you, and they're going to walk away feeling like you're their new best friend. Whether you want to be their best friend or not is irrelevant to the overall challenge that we put out there. And the heart of connections, and this is a great Maya Angelou quote, people forget what you said, but they never forget how you made them feel. So if we have that as like our North Star of rapport and communication and relationships with people and the transactional experience that clients have with us, we want them and we kind of need them to walk away never forgetting how great we made them feel, because that is going to be really the emotional money in your bank that is going to get you repeat business, is going to get you referrals, and is going to allow you to continue to branch out and build your business. And just remember, rapport isn't extra, it's everything. When trust is high, selling really is about helping, because we've done a great job at peeling back that onion, going down those layers in order to really understand what that person needs, and then we help them guide them to the solutions that's going to be best for them. And remember, we're not just selling homes, we're guiding people through the biggest decision in their lives. And just remember, for pretty much 99% of people, buying and selling their home is the largest financial transaction and investment that they have made to date in their life. And we are blessed to really be the Sherpa of that transaction, and we have to take that seriously. We have to really internalize the fact that we are really guiding people through the toughest time in their life, and we need to be that person that they can trust. They need somebody who truly gets them and somebody who makes them feel safe. And if you do a great job with rapport building, great job with communication, that person is going to be you. So thanks again for your time today, and I will see you on the next video.